Yeah, we'll be starting in just a minute. Yeah, good evening to all, and welcome to ArchiOS. Our today's session will be divided into three parts. At first, we'll have a good iOS application architecture lesson. After that, there will be a doubt session. And the third part is the most interesting part. There will be an interesting quiz. And the winner will be announced in the Instagram channel of ADG VIT. Then let's start with iOS application architecture. Before going to the topic, generally, have you ever wondered how full-scale applications are designed and added with very interesting functions and features that we need? And it's the solution. For any software system, not only for applications, after requirements gathering, there is a step which is planning. And after full planning, it's time for designing. And while designing, we need to have a perfect architectural pattern for any application, which will be suitable for the planned app as for the given requirements and the features and different types of constraints. Then you might be wondering, what is application architecture? Basically, application architecture is a structural roadmap, or we can say is a structure which need to be followed throughout the process while building the app and developing whole data sets and and other features. It will ensure the software's applications are assembled as per organization's requirements and how it will interact with the data and how it will meet business or user requirements. And application architecture helps to ensure that applications are scalable, reliable, and assist enterprise identity gaps in functionalities. Means it will cover all the quality attributes that a software system must have. Then, how to choose a good application architecture for your application? There are three main characteristics for a good architecture pattern. The first one is balanced distribution. For any system, the distribution must be balanced such a way that memory consumption and RAM will be performed efficiently. So the load will be kept in a distributed manner and the app will run perfectly. The second is testability. As we know, for any system software, not only for application, we need to have some setup test cases which will be tested at last of the in a phase of the sub SDLC, where a perfect application will be as an output of the total process. The third is ease of use. Ease of use is not only for users, it is also for the developers, which will be helpful for them for updating in later term. Then it's time for deep dive into iOS applications. Edge, we have different types of softwares. iOS has a few mergeable and very frequently used application architectures, which are MVC, MVP, and MVVM. At first, we'll see what is MVC. MVC is also called as Model View Controller. There are different types of MVCs and different structures of MVCs, and Apple follows this structure of MVC as shown in the flowchart. Here, the controller connects both model and view and act as mediator. Let's suppose giving an example. When you will be interacting with the app, you will be interacting with the view and it will send any actions of yours to the controller and that will updated in the model. After updation, it will notify the controller and the controller will have some business logics and users logic which will implement the feature or function and it will update the view. The next, we can see model view controller. What model basically mean? It is a data access layer which will connect to different data that is needed for our app, and it will have all the data related logic like all the API calls and other logical functions are will be present in the model part. And the view is the presentation layer, and you can interact with the app through the view only. If you will give some response and any interactions will be connected to the view only. After that, the view will send it to the controller. Controller is act as the interface, or you can say it is a glue between model and view. It's generally responsible for altering the model by reacting to the user's actions which are performed in view and updating the view by changing some data in the model. Let's suppose you have an app in which there is a search bar and you want to search something and you type something. After that, those will be sent to controller and the controller will change the logic and it will send it to the model where API call will occur and the required output will be sent to the controller and it will convert it into view manner and show as the output. Then when to use MVC? The answer for it is when you have an app where there are a lot of view components and views and there are a lot of data need to be connected and interact with different types of view components, then there is a need of controller which will make it easier by having some less controllers and you can complete the app and interactions will be be in efficient manner. What are the advantages and disadvantages? Advantages is the same way that usability. It have more efficient and it is more usable and easy to develop. And disadvantage is there is a need of less controllers and it need to be glue between both model and view and it will interact between both model and view. If there are various data are present and there are various view components are present, then the controller have lot of code and less controllers will have lot of code which will increase the code complexity. Here is an example in which you need to select your favorite superhero. You can see there are two views and there are two screens. You can consider this as a presentation layer because you will interact with this. There are two labels, there are text fields, and there is a picker view from which you can select any of the superhero. Those will be mentioned in the data. When you will type your text field in name and also in email ID, after when you will select your favorite superhero, then submit, it will show in this different screen. It is a very basic app. Now we'll learn how it act in the form of MVC. Here it is the model. And the model contains two structure. There is no API logics and all because it is a very simple app. Name, fav, and email. And superheroes, it is a constant like having four superheroes. After that, it is a view. In view, you can see different screens. It is similar as you have seen in that app. After that, it is a controller. In controller, you can see there are different view components are connected from line number 14 to 17. And there are different type of logics are written over there, which will convert the data and as per that given model data, like here we have created one object also, which is named as user, and those will be updated. If you will select something, those will be also updated, and those updates will be done in model. And in the second controller, you can see here it is the second controller for the second view where the data will be updated and will be shown. And here it is the flow chart for it. As we have in model users, and it will notice at first the screen will be start from view, as you will be giving some text field, then you will be editing in picker view. After that, you will select the button, and then it will send an user response. After that, controller will have some features and some logics as per the features, and then it will send update request to the model, and in that model there will be some changes. After that, it will notify to the controller about the changes, and updates will be made, displayed and made in the view, in the second view, in the form of text label and image view. This is all about MVC. Now I want to call hers to continue with MVP and MVVM.
MVP. Time for one of the most popularly used patterns. The MVP, considered literally the MVP of app development. MVP, as you have seen, there are some disadvantages of using the MVC pattern. So, to tackle those issues, MVP was introduced in the 1990s by Apple, IBM, and HP, and it is still widely used today. MVP stands for Model View Presenter. It is similar to MVC, like how the role of the model remains the same. You can consider it as a struct or a class that you have in C and C++, and it has some initializers, data members, and function definitions. The model represents simple data. It simply holds the data and has nothing to do with any of the business logic. For example, if you're making a weather app, your model would contain the definitions called data members, that is the weather. It may include an image that changes the weather to like sunny or rainy, and provide functions like using the API, etc. The view, as the name suggests, contains all the UI elements that you will be seeing and the view controller files that contain code which is related only to the view and directly interacts with the user. The view is made passive and it is not responsible for updating itself based on the changes in the model. The presenter updates the data and the state of the view. Now the presenter contains all the user logic. For example, handling of actions and inputs like touches, of course. This is how the presenter will be the main actor in our application without directly using the UIKit framework and without creating a massive view controller. UIKit is the framework that you will use most often when developing iOS applications. It defines the core components of an iOS application from labels and buttons to table views and navigation controllers. Every app you use contains a table view of some sort and, of course, contains a navigation controller. At the same time, we isolated the logic from the view's lifecycle. Now, lifecycle is a term that describes the state of the app, whether the app is being used, or whether it's in the background in recent apps, or it has been terminated. Because of this isolation, it will be easy to do unit tests. Unit tests are automated tests that run and validate a piece of code, and that piece of code is called a unit to make sure it behaves as intended. Now, let us see an implementation of MVP through an example. It is a very basic app with two screens. Once you open the app, you are welcomed with a welcome screen. And when you click on the button, you have three options. and you have to choose one of the options, and it gives you a tiny description. The model file, as you can see, contains only the struct and class definitions along with some required member functions. That is basically the life of the app. Moving on to the view section, it contains the app UI, as you can see, with all the elements like buttons and images. This has been achieved with the help of UIKit framework. Next is the view controller, which, as you can see by the function names, takes in user inputs. Whenever you use an app, you obviously interact with the views and view controllers. And next comes the presenter, which does its job of being the mediator between the view controller, and the model by having all the code related to app logic. The view takes an input, passes it on to the presenter, and after processing with the help of the model, it passes the result back to the view, which updates the UI. When developing an App Store ready app, it is bound to have hundreds of lines of code and maybe even thousands of lines. So adding new code, refactoring, or even reading it may be difficult. Now, being an app developer, being able to read and understand your own code after a very long time, or even someone else's code, is very important. I've been in the situation where I've developed apps, but after a month or two, I have no idea what this line of code does and where it is linked. And that is where MVP comes in handy. Obviously, comments also help a lot, but when your files are sorted in different folders according to what role they perform, it is going to be easy to read. And it also increases the ease of which with one can understand the code. The advantages of having such an architecture is that testing can be easily performed without worrying about all the impacts a single line of code can make. It also provides a clean and maintainable database. The elements are loosely coupled, so changes can be easily made. That is, if you make a change in one view controller, you won't necessarily have to change the code in other files. And when they are tightly coupled, it becomes a really big problem when you have to add new features or make some changes. Obviously, some when you have advantages, you also have a couple of disadvantages. It is not really practical for really small apps which do not have much user interaction or functions. Like you might have heard of the infamous I Am Rich app, which was sold for hundreds of dollars and it does nothing but show that you are rich. So having an MVP design pattern on such an app is pretty pointless. The data models are manipulated by controllers, which may come across as a hurdle in some cases, and it entirely depends upon what type of app you are trying to make. Now, the next architecture is the MVVM architecture. As you've seen that there were problems with MVC as well as the MVP architecture. So that is where the MVVM was introduced by John Goodman in 2005. MVVM stands for Model View View Model. It might sound a bit confusing, but here it is. MVVM pattern supports two-way data binding between view and view model. This allows the automatic propagation of changes inside the state of view model to the view. Now the model it has come again, and this is just your model, which is nothing else. It is the same one as in MVC and MVP. It is used by the VM, that is the view model, and updates whenever the view model sends new updates. The view controller contains code which is related only to the view and directly interacts with the user. The role is the same in both MVC and MVP patterns. In MVVM architecture, view and controller are closely coupled together and treated as a single component. It can also be represented as a UI view or UI view controller objects accompanied by their .xib and .storyboard files. Now, these extensions may sound unique and new to many of you, but once you're in iOS development, you'll be using these on a regular basis. There is no direct interaction between the view controller and model, and it no longer needs to worry about business logic. It should go through view model and request for what it requires in a ready to display format. The view model. It is responsible for exposing methods, commands, and other properties that help to maintain the state of the view. manipulate the model as a result of actions in the view, and trigger events in the view itself. That is, when a person uses an app, he is going to trigger events by interacting with buttons, with images, or scrolling. The view has a reference to the view model, but the view model has no information about the view. That is, there is a many to one relationship between the view and view model. That means the many views can be mapped to one view model. It is completely independent of views. View model never knows what the view is or what the view does. This makes architecture more testable and removes complexity from the view. Now let's see the implementation of the MVVM architecture. The following screen is the view and the view controller. Now on the right hand side was .xiv that is used in table view cells, and this is the struct. There are two structs. One is they both describe the data members of what kind of data the app will be using. Now moving on, MVVM offers some advantages over Model View Controller or MVC and even MVP. One of the main things, maintainability. The MVVM can remain agile and keep releasing successive versions very quickly. Extensibility, having the ability to replace or add new pieces of code. Transparent communication, the view model provides a transparent interface to the view controller, which it uses to populate the view layer and interact with the model layer. Testability. Now, whenever you develop an app, you have to test it. So, a view model is much easier to test than a view controller. You end up testing business logic without having to worry about view implementation. Reduced complexity. MVVM makes the view controller simpler by moving a lot of business logic out of it. It is expressive. The model view better expresses the business logic for the view. Now, again, there are advantages and they do come with disadvantages as well. MVVM is pretty hard to implement if you're a beginner, but with experience, it will become pretty easy to do so. And apps with simple UI, MVVM can be an overkill. Like there is no reason to implement MVVM if you're going to have like a one or two screen application. For larger apps, data binding will be complex, so debugging will also be hard. So the most important thing to do before you start developing apps is to create an outline or a flowchart that summarizes what your app will do and how it will behave. So you have a rough, at least a rough idea on what pattern you should follow. MVC, however, it does remain the most popular one as it is easy to implement for small scale apps as well. Now we will be having a doubt session, and after the doubt session, we'll be having a quiz. And whoever is the top performer of the quiz will get a free shout out on the official Instagram handle of ADG VIT.
Like there isn't any doubt. You can type yes, like we can start the quiz also. I have posted the link, quiz link in the chat section. Hope you can see it. You can join the quiz.
Now, whoever is the top performer in the quiz will get a free shout out on Instagram handle of ADG VIT.
Yeah, people are joining. We'll wait for 2 to 3 minutes. When all people will be joining, we'll start the quiz.
We'll wait for another minute or so and we'll start the quiz.
Okay, now I'm starting the quiz. All the best to everybody. Yeah, the quiz, I guess, started. Hope you all can see those who have completed their quiz, their rank in their skill. There are some of, I guess they are now also giving the quiz. We'll wait for just a minute. Then we will announce the winner. Okay, I'm ending the quiz now. Uh, And the first position goes to Sashwat Basu. So congrats. You can send your Instagram ID in this comment section. And there is it was a, I guess it was a use interesting game.
Congratulations, Shashwat.
Here we conclude our session. Thank you to everyone to attending the session. And now hers.
Yes, thank you everyone, and congratulations again for getting the first rank. You will get a shout out soon on the official Instagram handle. Thank you everyone.